Hi, this is Kylie Koo. Welcome to my studio. This is Wild Positivity, and the prompt this time is Dreamer. So I have my journal and I've already pulled out a few collage pieces. And I'm just going to quickly show you these. There was two main focal points that I'd been looking at. This woman with the hat. Because she had her eyes closed, I thought she looked like a bit of a dreamer. And the other one where the woman is kind of crouched within a kind of woodland setting. So I'm just going through the collage pieces that I'd pulled. Some of them are very much neutral and will work with either piece. The others, I was kind of breaking them into the kind of warm orange tones, and for the other image, more the kind of greens, slight blues. And I'm looking at a number of the papers I had from Peter's Handmade Papers as well. So I decide at this point that I can't quite decide which image that I want to use, and therefore what I decide to do is to cut them out. I'll just get a better sense of scale once I cut them out. So I do like both images, and I think the one that's troubling me with the woman with her eyes closed and smiling is simply the hat, and I was trying to think, how might I disguise this? So at this point I am tending towards the woman who seems to be crouched in some sort of woodland setting. So cutting out this other image, I had a sense that this would work with either of those two images, but just trying to look now at where this might sit and starting to pull out some of my other collage pieces. Some of these were really just kind of drop papers where I'd run stencils off in them when I was doing some painted papers for my boho journal recently, and liking that butterfly from the Tim Holtz tissue collection, and also drawn to this particular piece of a kind of creamy white paper with gold dots on it. So I decide at this point anyway that I know that I want a few of these down. I know that I'm going to go with the woman who's sitting amongst the greenery, but I just want to get some background interest down. So I'm just going to collage these papers down. Some of these are simply stamped prints on deli paper, some old music sheets, some dictionary pages, and as I say, some kind of drop sheets. So just going to use some matte medium to get these in place. So I'm still running about a month behind with this project. This was actually the prompt for October, and whether by coincidence or subconsciously when I've been putting these prompts together, this would have actually coincided with the Celtic festival of Samhain, and that whole notion of dreamer felt quite strong for me around that time in particular. I had hoped to actually record this towards the end of October, but because I was having issues and still am having issues with my editing software, I didn't get round to do it. I was spending so much time trying to resolve those issues. So again, I'm just filming on my actual phone, which is why I don't do any kind of close-in shots. The camera is more or less static. So here I'd gone off to get some sheets to put in between my pages, and actually found another piece of what had been run off paper when I was doing my painted papers, and this just seemed to fit in. It was kind of a green gold colour, and I liked it, so again decided to collage some of this in place. So I think in terms of dreamer, I am thinking two things here. One is a dreamer in terms of someone that has dreams for the future. They're thinking about the type of world that they want to live in, their own personal dreams, their hopes and dreams. And the other side of dreamer is that we have dreams. By that I mean the dreams when we're asleep. And I think when we sleep and we have dreams, sometimes it's our subconscious telling us things. You will believe what you believe in terms of your dreams, but for me, I can have some very vivid dreams. Things come to me And I think that's why this prompt was so important for me. I think one of the things about the word dreamer though is often it's used in a negative way. You know, it'd be said of someone that oh, they're just a dreamer, they've got their heads in the cloud type thing. But you know, to take action, I think you have to have dreams. If you don't have dreams, then what's your action about? If you don't have dreams, then we would simply get up each day and just take what's given to us, regardless of whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And, you know, I think for where we are in the world, we need to have dreams. You know, I dream of making or helping make the world a better place. I do dream of a world that improves here during my lifetime, and also one that's here, a better world for generations to come. But as I say, for everyone it will be different. So if you are using this prompt, you know, it's for you to interpret in whatever way you want to. So looking at that other piece that I was going to add in, and I start to feel that maybe it's not going to be appropriate, that piece with the flowers. And I also felt that the piece with the woman in it, it was just, there was too much kind of dark green, so decided that I actually was going to tear her out. I was still leaving a bit of the dark green around her at this point, but you see later on that I do end up taking most of that away as well. So just trying to carefully tear round her. And I'm feeling that she will now fit better in the piece. I think originally I'd been thinking I would make a lot of it dark, have her out of it, but then lighten it at the top. But you'd see I used watercolour in terms of greens and blues there, just to try and bring the background together a little bit. Now I'm thinking here that maybe I want to use that stamp and to have that as a kind of background to her. I know that I don't want it a very bold stamp. I found another piece of the paper with that, well, it'd been a runoff from a stencil, and I decided that actually what would be better is to put this down there as well. So she's almost still sitting in a wood somewhere, and it's very much surrounded by these kind of flowers. So gluing that piece in as well, and I changed from the matte medium to the gel matte medium. I just felt that would actually stick the papers down a bit better. So I'm now taking my stamp, and I've used an old ink pad here, but you'll see the first stamp doesn't come out too well, so I give it another go. As I say, I didn't want this to be too strong, I just wanted it to be there, a hint of it in the background. So I was quite happy with that. And I'm just going to add in a bit more colour here, just with the watercolours, just trying to integrate the newer pieces that I'd added in. Also just trying to differentiate a little bit between a slightly darker green at the bottom, going a little bit lighter, and then a little bit of blue at the top. So I wasn't putting too much water onto this particular green at that point, because I wanted quite a bit of the pigment to remain. I very much wanted with this piece to be able to see the background collage, and I didn't feel at this point that I needed to do much more to kind of integrate it. And as you can see, I worked away on that for quite a while. Dried it all off, and it just happened that my collage pieces had been sitting at the side and the woman had been on top of that butterfly. And I'm not someone who usually adds butterfly wings to women. I know it's quite a common thing to do, but it just felt as if if I put the butterfly on her back, that would fit well with this notion of dreamer. For me anyway, it did. So I cut further round her, just left a slight border, and then placed her within that stamped image, almost as if it was a kind of cocoon. I've not glued them in place at this point because what I want to do now is to start to add some white to give it that kind of misty, dreamlike effect. Because here I'm thinking of dreams both in terms of having dreams for the future that are maybe just not quite crystallised yet, but also that notion of dreams when we're asleep, when things are just a little bit unclear. And I think this was maybe part of the connection too to Samhain that I was thinking about, in terms of, you know, the kind of thinning of the veil between our presence on this earth and any spiritual presence, the kind of bringing together of those two worlds at that particular point in the Celtic New Year. So the piece was very much filled with symbolism for me. At the end of the day, it's an art journal page and it can be looked on as just that, but for me there's a lot of kind of symbology in it. So I'm now putting her down with some gel matte medium and putting the butterfly on top. I trim off the edges of the page just to see a bit more clearly where the edges are. And I keep coming back to this piece of one of the handmade papers from Peter's Papers. And I really like this, but I just felt it was too square, or rectangle anyway, and that I wanted to kind of trim out some of the edges from it. I wasn't entirely certain how this would look at the end, so off camera I go round that and I'm left with this kind of odd shape, I guess. Looking at where it might go, and I've got this notion that what I'll do is to pick up those kind of gold dots that look like thread, that I'll pick that up and carry it through the rest of the page. So gluing that down, and then I decide to take some of the white acrylic paint again, and what I'm going to do is just to try and blend it in a little bit more just by going around the edges of that. Just take a small brush to try and work it in, and then I take a harder bristled brush just to work it out a bit so that it's not too concentrated. And I just work my way completely around that piece of paper, just laying the paint down, then spreading it out. So again, just creating that kind of dreamlike mist that I already had there, but just helping to blend that piece in. And I've got a notion at this point that that's where I will stick the prompt word anyway. So I was going to use my gold Posca pen for this, but it does have a tendency to flood, so I've just taken this gel pen. You can't see, you can see it a little bit I guess there, and you can see that I'm just picking up from the paper those lines and just carrying them on, and I intend to do this with each piece. I want to bring it round so that it actually envelops her. It almost builds further that kind of cocoon effect around her and around the butterfly. So I do a lot of it off screen because obviously I needed to get my head down a bit closer to see it, and it might not have been too exciting for you just to see me doing a whole load of dots. I then decide to go round the butterfly, and again I do some of this off camera. So once that's done, I decide that I just want to do something around the border, and all I do is to take an actual colour pencil in green. So I had thought about using Inktense, but I decided that I didn't want to blend this out in any way, so it's just to give a little bit of framing to the page. So going right round all the edges. Not in any even sense, and I make it a bit deeper, going a bit harder on the corners. Then take a black and I just go around the very outer edge with it. So not as much as the green, but just a little bit, just to darken it further. At this point I feel that it needs maybe a bit of black and white, so I take my white Uniball Signal. I was going to do dots, but then I change that and I actually just do lines. And I do that on 2 or 3 of the flowers. I liked them in the background, but I just wanted them to stand out just that little bit more. I then feel that perhaps it needs some black paint, a few splatters. Slightly nervous about doing this, but go for it anyway. And you'll see in a moment I get a couple of big splatters, and I'm absolutely fine with that, and some smaller ones round about. I didn't want to cover the page completely, but I just felt that the black would add something to it. So I'm now going to make my word. I know where I'm going to put it, and I just tear the bottom of that book page, take out my alphabet stamps, got my ink pad, and then I just stamp my word. Just tear that down a bit, and then I'll take the ink pad gently around the edge. And again, I'm quite happy that this was an old ink pad and therefore the stamping wasn't too pronounced. I wanted a softness even in the word itself. So I'm just going to glue this in place with gel matte medium once I decide where I actually want it to go. Just dabbing up those big splats because they weren't dry at this point. And here I managed to smudge some of my lines just a little bit, but it's okay because my word's going to cover that. And what I do after that anyway is I go over it with the heat gun, with the heat tool, just to set it all. So that's my page for the Prompt Dreamer. Hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for watching, and bye for now.